Hi, I'm Staci Neustadt. I'm a speech language pathologist and CEO at Making Sense of Autism. I have Susan Golubock here, who is our founder and an autistic retired occupational therapist. So I often ask Sue questions regarding topics that come up with therapists, with parents, so that she can provide the autistic perspective on these topics and gives some guidance. So Sue, I often hear people say, parents say, therapists say, but there's things that they have to learn to do, especially on those topics where some people think we're being too lenient and providing too many outs. So, what are your thoughts on those topics or those skills where things we just have to do?
There are certain social rules that are there for a reason. Um, it's to protect people and from themselves, from other people, such as hitting, um, aggressing toward another person. That is never socially acceptable. I don't care what kind of disability or reason you give for that behavior. It's never going to be condoned, and it never should be. And I've had, when I've commented on a child being aggressive, and a parent would say, "Oh, but you don't understand. He's under such stress." And well, yes, I understand the reason, but that doesn't make the behavior excusable. And there's certain things they have to learn. Now, granted, if you understand the reason behind it, that can help you understand how you can support it so that that doesn't escalate to that point. Um, uh, and so understanding is definitely helpful, but as far as using it as an excuse so that there aren't consequences as far as that child is concerned, once the child, you've got them calmed down, back down, and regulated, there still has to be a consequence. They have to learn those important social rules of no, you cannot aggress. This is where problem solving comes in. All right, I understand where you're coming from, why it triggered that. And now you're making the person feel validated that they're understood as to why they chose that behavior. But you got to say, let's go back to the drawing board. We've got to find a different way to help you deal with that situation other than aggression, because that's not going to fly. Everyone wants to feel that their feelings are understood and heard by other people. It's essential to us as human beings.
Mhm.
So recognizing, oh, I can see how this really upsets you. And feeling compassion, I'm sorry this is so upsetting to you, uh, is going to disarm the individual and mollify that their intensity of their feeling.
Mhm.
Um, but then comes the but. I know and I understand this, but we still need to deal with this. Now, what you're doing is because the autistic brain cannot be in two areas of the brain or shift back and forth easily. So now you're saying, let's problem solve. What you're doing is prompting them to move from feeling to thinking,
Mhm.
to the thinking area of the brain. And so the emotions disappear. The emotions are gone. I cannot um, be in two areas of the brain emotionally or think. When I shift to the thinking, then it's all logic.
Mm.
So now you're presenting me with a logical puzzle that I am motivated. Okay, here's a way out. I'm not going to be directly punished, even though there may be consequences that I may consider as punishment. But if I don't find a solution to the problem, but you're helping me to make that shift from being emotional to being logical, which means you have to be able to make that shift from whatever
Yes.
you feel about how they've reacted to shifting to the let's think about it. let's work together and problem solve how you might have handled this better. And here's your choices. You never tell someone how to live their life. No one likes that. You're going to return them to the emotional part if you do, because
Mhm.
they're going to fight for their self, right? But this is how I feel. Um, so the problem solving gives you that area of logic of thinking that is going to appeal to them. But you're the one that's going to help them make that shift.
Yes.
That's not always easy.
And like you said, we have to co-regulate and make sure we come down as well.
And unfortunately, those autistics that I think were given too many excuses, too lenient, are the ones that are end up in trouble with the law later, because they haven't learned how to problem solve, i.e., I feel this, so therefore I do this. And
Mhm.
no, we all have to be able to shift gears from how we feel to judge how we're going to act upon how we feel and make those choices. And you need to sit down and help them make choices, reasonable choices.
Yes. So if at home it's a parent says you have to get dressed, or at school it's hey, we have to get ready for lunch, or we have to go to whatever class it is. If the child responds with aggression, first get to that calm point, and then second, problem solve. So there was a problem in that situation, and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what it was, whether it's the clothes that mom picked out to wear are uncomfortable and I didn't know how to say no, I don't want those, or the PE class is too loud, or the writing class creates stress because they're required to write, but the solution isn't the hitting. Let's look at different solutions. And I think that's the piece that's really missing is that problem solving. It's I see a behavior. I want to deal with this behavior they're hitting. So I'm going to create a social story, no hitting. But that is not going to get rid of the hitting. Working
No.
through the problem, they're using the hitting as their solution.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to that problem solving. So I'm really hearing you hit on two important things. One is go back to problem solving, which I will link the problem solving freebie that we have for both level one autistics, where they have more language, and trial and error for level two and three autistics. We have that freebie. So going back to problem solving, but you bring up a second really good point, Sue, that tension or that balance between compassion and people call it compliance, but I'm going to call it boundaries because oh, that word compliance is
Mm-hmm.
icky. So that balance or that tension between compassion and boundaries. If you have too much compassion, you're not going to have boundaries. And like you said, those kids are going to get in trouble. And I get it. Like, we want our kids to feel loved, we want our kids to feel understood. But if there's too much of that, there are no boundaries. Now, on the flip side, if you have too many boundaries, the child is going to feel stressed and not heard and probably demonstrate some of this aggressive behavior. But there definitely is that balance. And you're talking about that balance, how
Mm-hmm.
we can use problem solving to have that compassion, yet, hey, when you're not wanting to do and a have to thing, some of the suggestions you've provided in the past are like, ask, what are my choices? Providing supports, which supports are not cheats. They are so the child can be successful. So I think this is really good because we don't always think about what those other options are. I feel like too many times we go straight to
Mm-hmm.
that surface behavior and try to fix that. So awesome. You definitely open our eyes to how to help with those have tos, which I know can be hard.
But they're needed.
They are needed. Awesome. Thank you, Sue.